What's up, Jolinator Club? Alright, so once again, this is a Marvel review, so I got my Marvel poster behind me, and tonight I am concluding my series of Spider-Man reviews leading up to Spider-Man Homecoming with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm going to tell you guys right now, just for those of you who have not seen it, that this review will consist of spoilers, you know, so for those of you who have not seen this movie yet, I would suggest turning this video off right now unless you don't care about spoilers. For those of you who have seen the movie, welcome. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the 2014 sequel to The Amazing Spider-Man, which, as you know, I liked, but of course it had its flaws. This movie has its flaws too. However, I don't think that this movie deserves all the hate that it gets. I think it's pretty good. I feel like I like this movie a little bit more than Spider-Man 3. I mean, this is the only Spider-Man movie that I know of besides Spider-Man 3 that gets a lot of hate. So, for those of you who are expecting me to hate on this movie, I'm not going to, because I need to give my honest opinions for these reviews, and I like this movie pretty good. Again, I'm not saying it's great, but I think it's pretty good. Let's jump right into this. The story of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, once again, revolves around Spider-Man, and this time, Peter Parker has graduated from high school, and Jamie Foxx plays Max Dillon, and he turns into Electro, and a lot of stuff happens in Peter's life, and he has to deal with that. I'm going to talk about what I liked and didn't like in this movie. The first thing that I would like to mention, and is probably one of the best things in the movie, is the suit. I mean, look at that. The suit in this movie is better than the one in The Amazing Spider-Man. The suit actually looks really good. It's one of the best Spider-Man suits that I've seen, not just in film, but ever. It looks like Spider-Man. The eyepieces are huge, and they even have the web shooters from the first film, so for that matter, the suit is really cool. Also, the musical score for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is done by Hans Zimmer. Excellent choice, and I really love the musical score. I used to have one of the songs on my iPod Touch, but I don't have it anymore. I think Hans Zimmer did a great job with the music in this movie. You know, it has this great sort of triumphant, exciting feel to it, and it is really awesome. What really gets the story moving is when we see Spider-Man in the opening of this movie, and we see him going after Paul Giamatti playing Alexei Sitsevich, who of course all us Spider-Man fans know as the Rhino. Now, the Rhino is in this movie, but he's really not much. He's on the cover, and he's also on the poster for the movie, but it really doesn't make sense because he's not one of the focal villains. Spider-Man's going around the city trying to stop Alexei Sitsevich, and he's making these jokes, and it's what we love seeing Spider-Man do. Granted, it may not be the best time for Spider-Man to tell these jokes because a lot of these cars are crashing. And the whole scene keeps cutting back and forth from all these different things. It comes from Max Dillon, and then back to Gwen Stacy, back to Alexei Sitsevich, back to Spider-Man, and I just feel like you're gonna have to slow down and do one thing at a time. Now when Spider-Man meets Max Dillon, he's like, "You're my eyes and ears of the city." And here's the thing, I don't have anything against Jamie Foxx in this role. Jamie Foxx, as an actor, I think is very talented, and I really like him. However, he does a good job in this role, but the main thing that I don't really care for is the character itself. Don't get me wrong, Electro looks pretty cool. I mean, if you just look at that, he actually looks really cool. Electro looks nice, but the problem that I have with it is he's essentially the Riddler from Batman Forever, and so that really bugged me. You know, like Spider-Man meets him for the first time, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I love you." Then he becomes a villain, and he's like, "Okay, now I hate you." And that really bugs me. Gwen Stacy is the valedictorian. She's giving this whole speech and all that kind of stuff. The romantic dialogue between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy I thought was well done in this movie. Granted, it wasn't anything to write home about, but it was cute. You know, they were a cute couple. Another character that gets introduced in this movie is Harry Osborn, played by Dane DeHaan. We see he and Peter meet together, and, you know, they hang out and they do all this kind of stuff together. It was cool to see their relationship as like friendship together, but in general I thought that friendship wasn't quite built up enough. I had the same problem with Venom in Spider-Man 3. He didn't have enough screen time, they didn't develop his character enough. I had the same problem with Harry here. My favorite Peter Parker Gwen Stacy scene is the scene where Peter's like, "Stop doing that thing with your nose, it's way too cute, it's killing me," and you look at that and you're like, you guys are a cute couple. One thing that I think is very well done, probably one of the best things in this movie, is the action. The action in this movie is so top-notch. This is what I like seeing Spider-Man do. He's just going around really fast and doing all sorts of cool stuff. In the first fight with Electro, now here's the thing. Electro sees himself on the screens all over Times Square, and he was like, whoa, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's not good for him because he's clearly a problem, but he thought it was cool. He's on the big screen, and so, but then Spider-Man shows up, and then everything gets just turned 360. Now, once the action does happen, we see that Spider-Man in these Amazing Spider-Man movies is really smart and does what he can to help people and stop the bad guys in these situations. Like, there's this one scene where Spider-Man's flipping backwards, and you see a police car coming towards him. One of his web shooters goes out, and he's sensing that all the people around the on the staircase are going to be dead if they touch the railing. So what he does is he uses the web shooters to stop everybody from getting hurt. And that was really cool. I liked that. And the thing that I like about Andrew Garfield in these movies of Spider-Man is that if he tries to talk people out of making bad decisions. You know, he tries to actually help people, and sometimes it's not always the right call, but when he does, it's actually pretty well handled. Now, like I mentioned before, Harry Osborn is in this movie, and he gets turned into the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin in this movie, when I saw this movie in the theater, I was like, wow, that Green Goblin looks really cool. And I'll admit, the costume, I guess, is okay, but the makeup is just weird. He looks like he has face herpes. After Spider-Man's final fight against Electro, which, by the way, he magnetizes his web shooters in order to stop him from getting fried, that was really cool. He stops Electro, and then the Green Goblin comes in to cause some problems, but he is there clearly to kill Gwen Stacy, and yeah, she dies. I felt like what they should have done was made the movie longer. It's the same thing that happened with Spider-Man 3. What they should have done was made the movie longer and develop the Goblin as a character. Maybe have Spider-Man maybe have 2 fight scenes with him, like, and then have it end with Gwen dying, and that way it would be, you know, more effective. Like, maybe have Harry have like sort of a motivation to do it, not just have the Goblin in this movie killing Gwen because the Goblin kills Gwen in the comics. I don't understand why the Green Goblin was just shoehorned in here. So the Goblin takes Gwen all the way up to this clock tower, and Peter tries to reason with him, but it ends up in, of course, Gwen dying. And when I saw this in the theater, I was like, oh no. And now, granted, I knew it was coming because I was doing all this research of this movie before it came out, but Gwen's death in this movie is really tragic. I was like, oh man, like, ouch. Oh man, you know, now here's the thing. For those of you who have read the comics, which I'm sure any Spider-Man fan watching my videos has read the comics, but anyway, if you read the comics, in the comics, Spider-Man webs her foot and it breaks her neck. The momentum just snaps her neck. In this movie, the web gets her, but it was a millisecond too late, and it snapped her neck back, and with the full force of the momentum, she smacked her head on the concrete. And then Peter gets down there and he's like, Gwen, come on, stay with me. And then he just gets down there and he's crying and she's bleeding out of her nose. It is just rough. Gwen's death in this movie was truly heartbreaking, and if they were trying to make it a sad death, they definitely accomplished that. This is where my major complaint comes in with this movie, and that is when, after Gwen dies, you see Peter standing at her grave, and it shows like summer, fall, winter, spring, and all that kind of stuff. He's just standing there, and what happens, you know, he's just really taking in this death scene, and honestly, I wish they had ended the movie there. You know, I wish it had just ended there. Like, Spider-Man is like gone because his girlfriend died, and then maybe in the next movie, if they did a part 3, like they pick up with him becoming Spider-Man again. But instead what happens is Alexei Savage comes back in this big rhino suit, and honestly, like probably all of you out there, I was not a fan of this rhino suit at all. It did not look like the Rhino at all, so for that reason, I was just like, why does he look like this? And he sounds like an idiot. And then Spider-Man comes in and just beats the Rhino, and then credits. I like this movie fine, but it's definitely not my favorite Spider-Man movie. Honestly, after watching Chris Stuckman's review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I gotta agree with him. My favorite scene in the entire movie is this one tiny scene where this kid's being picked on, Spider-Man saves him, and then he fixes his little windmill and then walks home with him. That's Spider-Man. That is Spider-Man. What I think they should have done with this movie was it should have been Spider-Man fighting Electro. Electro probably should have been more evil because They try to make these Spider-Man villains really sympathetic, which I'm all for sympathetic, but here's the thing. I like villains that are also just pure evil, like Michael Myers and stuff like that. And I know I probably shouldn't be comparing a comic book to a horror movie, but you get what I'm trying to say. That looks like the route they're going with the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming. When it comes to the romance between Peter and Gwen, I feel like it should have been like, okay, I'm dating you and now you're dead, and you're dead from a means other than the Goblin just coming in and killing you because he killed you in the comics. And the reason why I feel like the Goblin was shoehorned in, and I'm sure everybody's going to agree with me here, Green Goblin to me is like Spider-Man's main nemesis. I know there's people that argue that it's Venom because Venom is Spider-Man's opposite, but for me, for Spider-Man and Peter Parker's life, it's the Green Goblin. He's done the most damage to him. So just shoehorning him into the end of this movie just doesn't feel right. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I feel, is a good movie. Definitely not the best Spider-Man movie by any means necessary. I do think that for those of you who have not seen the Spider-Man movies, if you're interested in watching the Amazing Spider-Man films, if you like the first Amazing Spider-Man and you want to see a pretty solid sequel, then this movie will do you just fine. But if you want a great Spider-Man movie, then I would say watch the original Sam Raimi trilogy and then the first Amazing Spider-Man. You might want to skip over this one, I'll leave it up to you. But in the end, my rating for this is The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a movie that would be kinda nice at matinee price. This ends my Spider-Man reviews, so post your comments below. I want to know, what is your favorite Spider-Man movie, and are you excited for Spider-Man Homecoming? Post your comments below, you guys are the best. Thank you all so much as always for watching, and if you like this, like, comment, favorite, hit that subscribe button, and join the Jolinator Club. Chest bump!